The NBA playoffs, where tension is high, crowds are electric, and every tick of crunch time is precious. The greats do their best in these moments to step up and put the team on their back, going blow for blow with their opponent until the final buzzer sounds. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and even the likes of Jamal Murray, Jimmy Butler, and Donovan Mitchell are some great examples of guys who step up their game during the home stretch of the season when their team needs them the most. The game slows down during the clutch moments of playoff games, and these guys are giving 110% to make sure that their team brings home the glory. So we can easily observe it cannot be that hard to... Okay, stop right there. Because giving 110% and performing 110% are two completely different things, and some players seem to miss the memo when the playoffs start. While the schemes may change to throw better defensive coverage at the best of the best to neutralize their scoring, some of these guys also tend to struggle under the pressure of playoff basketball. We've seen players such as Joel Embiid, who have been historically dominant in the regular season, but when he would reach the playoffs, he would either be battling injury or extremely underperform, leaving Sixers fans heartbroken in the process. Aha, you see what I did there? We've seen guys like James Harden, whose elite scoring has put him with the greatest to ever put the ball in the basket, and he is the system on almost every team that he's played on, but somehow he's frequently found a way to struggle his way to early exits year after year. And this season we find ourselves with a great variety of the good, the bad, and the ugly. But most importantly, some players are putting up some absolute stinkers in this year's playoffs. But why? Why do these star players have such horrific nights on the biggest stage? Why can some guys just not handle the pressure of playoff basketball and the intensity of having to put the team on their back? Hello everyone, I'm Mason, and what creates an NBA playoff choker? Make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much. And let me know down in the comments below who you have winning this year's NBA Finals. The best part of a young star's career is their first playoff appearance. The Detroit Pistons went from being one of the worst teams in the NBA last season to this year taking the league by storm and making not only a playoff appearance, but actually giving us a competitive series in the first round against the New York Knicks. As a result of this, Cade Cunningham would also make his first playoff appearance, in which he would average 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists a game. However, he would average over 5 turnovers a game in this series, 42.5% from the field and 18% from 3. He was facing incredible defensive coverage and seeing a lot of double teams. But because of what the media would like to do, he's already going to be labeled as a playoff dropper to some people, all because he had a rough series to start off his career. Now, honestly, it's pretty normal to see a drop in efficiency once the playoffs start. You're going to face a lot tougher looks and tougher defense in the playoffs. That's just how it is. And a guy like Cade Cunningham is going to be the most blitzed player because of the fact that he's a great playmaker and scorer, so you're going to have to find a way to neutralize him one way or another. Well, when you look at a guy like Jason Tatum, similar things can be said. The Boston Celtics are known as one of the dominant powerhouses in the NBA as of right now, and Jason Tatum has currently been labeled as one of the biggest playoff droppers in the current NBA, which can happen for a variety of reasons. Looking at Jason Tatum as a great example of this, as much as I like Tatum, it is the truth to say he has been a playoff dropper as of this far into his career. We look at so far into his 6 games of the playoffs, he's averaging 27 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 5 assists on 39.5% from the field and 32% from 3. The biggest, most criticized part about Jason Tatum's game, which is fair to be honest, is his shot selection. He definitely settles way too much from the 3-point line instead of actually driving downhill, getting to the basket, especially when he has a mismatch of a defender like a Jalen Brunson on him. He's still settling for a 3 instead of taking him to the rim, which in a situation like this, it's very hard to tell if he's settling because he doesn't want the pressure of driving to the rim and possibly having to make a pass and turning the ball over, or if he wants to be the hero by hitting a tough 3. And I don't count the Boston Celtics out just yet because they do have one of the best built rosters top to bottom. It's very easy to say that Jason Tatum has been a very huge blame for the reason that they are down 2-0, and especially in game 2 during the stretch of the game when he's chucking up terrible looks and he's not getting him to fall. Just because it works during the regular season does not mean it's going to work in the playoffs. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander pretty much buried the Thunder nail in the coffin in game 3 against the Denver Nuggets. During the stretch of this game, he was terrible. J-Dub was having a career night in the playoffs. He had 32 points and he was incredibly efficient, getting to his spots and looking dominant in that aspect. The problem was, during the last few minutes of this game, Shai kept taking the ball out of J J-Dub's hands and forcing these tough, contested mid-range shots. Normally, you'd say, hey, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's one of the best mid-range scorers in the game. But when you get to the playoffs and these tough mid-range shots have a lot more pressure riding under them, that defender is going to get an even better contest on you. And their scouting report at the top of the list says, do not let Shai get to that mid-range. You think they're going to let him have that little step back 16-footer that he loves? Absolutely not. And I think the biggest issue with players that struggle in the playoffs is that they cannot make the adjustment in their games to take what the defense is giving them. They cannot continue to settle for what has worked all of the regular season. And when you have a guy like Jalen Williams on fire getting to his spots and no one's able to stop him, you cannot kill his momentum in a playoff game by trying to get yourself going in a game in which you're cold. Now, I won't label Shai as a playoff dropper. He has not had a large enough sample size of being in the playoffs to really label him as a dropper. Last year in the playoffs, Shai was very good, averaging stats of 30, 7, and 6, along with 50% from the field, 43% from 3, which is very, very good. This year, he has not been anywhere near as good, and his efficiency from the field has definitely taken a hit. What we can do is compare to a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has been known throughout his career to be a great playoff riser, and his game definitely steps up in the playoffs because of his ability to constantly score and put pressure on the rim, as well as create his shot at all three levels. The Cavaliers are currently up and down battling with some injuries, but Donovan Mitchell has been nothing short of phenomenal, and especially in this series against the Pacers, the last 2 games, he has been putting constant pressure on the rim. I mean, in game 2, he shot 21 free throws because I'm not gonna lie, getting 21 free throws, he is kind of a merchant for that. But I do love the fact that Donovan Mitchell is playing incredible. Instead of settling for so many jumpers, he's doing what he does best with his crafty finishes at the rim, which the Pacers have literally nothing they can do about it. And most importantly, he's putting the team on his back when they need him to. What we see as a common theme with guys who tend to drop in the playoffs is they try to put the team on their back in a sense of they are not hot from the field, and even worse, they kill their team's momentum offensively by trying to shoot a couple really difficult shots. One of this year's biggest stories for playoff drops was Jalen Green. He had one good game in the entire playoffs in which he had 38 points against the Warriors in game 2, but the rest of his time in the playoffs was absolutely abysmal. He was shooting 37% from the field and 29.5% from 3. He was forcing a lot of tough step backs, and the Warriors were just thrilled anytime he got to shoot the ball. And again, the problem is when you have a guy that tends to settle for a lot of jump shots in a playoff scenario, especially if he's not hot, that can cause a lot of issues for an offense. In the fourth quarter of a game, when the offense gets very stagnant, teams are standing around more and not running as many sets for their offense, that's when you really see this start to kick in. When you have these guys working one-on-one in isolation in the playoffs, if it's a mismatch is one thing, but if you're trying to attack a good defender in isolation in a playoff scenario, it's not always going to work out to your advantage. And sometimes some of these star players can get in their own head too much and think that they have to save the day instead of finding the best look for their team and trusting their teammates. Jason Tatum pretty much single-handedly threw away game 1 because he did his patented sidestep and step back 3 when the Knicks knew that is exactly what he was going to rely on. In the last 5.5 minutes of this game, Tatum would settle for 3 after 3, missing all of them, and a lot of these shots have a common trend that Jalen Brunson is one of the people in the mismatch that he's not attacking. Now, another big thing that can cause true playoff drops is just the dynamic change of playoff basketball. It is going to be more physical. It's going to be more intense. Some of these things that you will get called in the regular season will not get calls in the postseason. We've seen guys like James Harden also fail because of this, as well as Joel Embiid. But fortunately for the guys who do tend to get a lot more free throws from such as things as foul baiting, such as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, all of these names, I do trust that their efficiency in shot making can lead them in these kind of situations. And some of these guys are a little more consistent than a guy like James Harden would be in a playoff setting. Even a guy such as Trae Young in his career has had a couple really stinky playoff games, but he makes up for it because he's able to knock down some really tough clutch shots. And while we're on the topic of Jalen Brunson, I would consider him a playoff riser in the sense that while his efficiency may drop a little bit, his scoring volume increases because he knows that when the offense slows down a little bit, he may have to take some tough shots in isolation, and even better that when he creates even the smallest bit of space, he can get his shot off over anyone. And now the biggest reason that a lot of players can really truly drop off when it comes to the playoffs is that some players are very predictable and easy to game plan against in a 7-game series scenario. A guy like Jason Tatum may be easier to scheme against than a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who Giannis has a wide variety of moves he may use to get to the basket, but he has a good enough touch that he can make tough finishes all around the rim. Now, Jason Tatum's problem is he settles a lot for these step back and sidestep jumpers that are already a lower percentage look for him in the regular season, that when it comes to the playoffs, it's even worse. The defense knows how to scheme and watch for when he's going to attempt these looks to get a better contest. And some players may just be a little bit better at facing and handling the pressure of a tough scenario like this than others. A big thing that teams will do to these star players scheme-wise is take away their most effective method of offense. If a guy really runs the pick and roll, some teams defensively cram the middle of the floor to not allow the pick and roll to be effective and force those outside shooters to really win the game, which in some cases, some of these role players being forced to have a higher scoring volume and seeing more touches can cause a major collapse in a playoff game if they're not used to having that much responsibility. A good example of one of these schemes is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder stopped running a lot of pick and rolls for Shai in a sense that they did not want to see him face a double team 30 feet away from the hoop because it's harder for him to make a play from there versus if he is attacking and forces the defense to collapse on him at the free throw line or in the mid-range, where he might see a little more space or multiple different options to make a pass outside. The problem with this is because they didn't want to see a double team on Shai and wanted him to get going in the last few minutes of game 3 against the Nuggets, Shai actually could have benefited from running one of these pick and rolls, as if they chose to actually double team him again, his playmaking has been very solid in these playoffs, so he would have been able to find an open guy rather than chucking up another contested mid-range shot. A guy like Nikola Jokic is very slow, thoughtful, and methodical on the offensive side of the ball, which the Oklahoma City Thunder are using to their advantage as they're collapsing on him anytime he spins and puts the ball on the floor, which they have used to cause him so many turnovers and have been very effective in that way. Again, it's just the game plan can shift in a sense of knowing what your opponent is capable of, and when you get to really playing against them for multiple games in a row versus the regular season when you're just kind of going game by game and you only have one day to plan, versus in the playoffs you really have up to 2 weeks to really figure out how you want to nitpick and pick apart your opponent. Even a guy like Stephen Curry, who by some people has labeled as a choker in the playoffs because of certain moments in his playoff career, he's also one of the most guarded players that I've ever seen in the playoffs. And we look at what happened in the Rockets series, they were constantly throwing 2 bodies at him, and they were even running a point zone in order to effectively keep him from getting the ball outside while also being able to still somewhat match up on the other guys who would be a little bit afraid to drive the ball and pick apart the defense. And honestly, it kind of worked. Overall, the intensity and pressure of the NBA playoffs is some that is unmatched by any other sport, and it's really hard to compete when the other team can really do everything in their power to pick apart your weaknesses and really figure out how they want to throw every sort of defensive coverage at you. We've seen guys in the past and today seriously struggle against some of these defensive coverages of the playoffs when they want to try to be the hero instead of trying to feed their teammates more, and it can seriously cost their team and them a spot at winning the title. What do you think about playoff droppers in the NBA? Personally, I just don't see a world where everyone can be a better player in the playoffs, and some guys that aren't at the best at playmaking unfortunately will be playoff droppers because they just cannot seem to find a way to score when they're facing tougher defense. And again, this video is not a shot at any of these players. I mean, heck, I'm worried about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because I don't know if he's gonna step his game up in the playoffs when the Thunder need him down 2-1. A guy like Jason Tatum has had a couple really bad seasons when it comes to scoring wise, but he does other things such as play good defense and play make for his team. It's just that scoring efficiency and shot selection has come back to bite the Celtics in the butt a couple of times, and it's just really unfortunate for us to see as fans. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And what do you think is the biggest reason that someone truly drops in the playoffs? Thank you for watching the video, and as always, see you next time, cuz.